Hello, I'm Tanya Penner, and I'd like to welcome you to my EDL 851 case study entitled When a Good Teacher Turns Bad. A brief overview of the situation. Jean Wilson is in her fourth year as principal at a rural school, and it's her first administrative assignment. She's taken a rather passive approach to leadership, as when she took over the attendance was good, test scores were great, and parents viewed the school favorably. And she had had advice from a professor to not rock the boat. So shortly after spring break of her third year at the school, she started noticing that the behavior of one of the teachers was unusual. Mrs. Horton is a first grade teacher, has in the past been a very effective teacher, in fact was teacher of the year. But she started becoming increasingly unfriendly, seemed very stressed and argumentative, and the principal learned from Mrs. Horton's colleagues that she was going through some pretty serious personal issues. Well, the end of the year came, and Jean hoped that Mrs. Horton would take the summer and get things sorted out. When the new school year began, it didn't seem like Mrs. Horton's demeanor had changed any. She was really disrespectful to her colleagues, especially those that the school had been chosen to pilot a reading program, and she was very demeaning to some of her colleagues that were in favor of this program. So Jean had a talk with her about that. And then during the first 6 weeks of school, there were phone calls and letters to Jean from parents concerned about their students being in Mrs. Horton's classroom. They were claiming that she was verbally abusive, that she screamed at the students, was habitually late to school, and refused to speak with them. Well, Jean assured them that she had been into the classroom and hadn't seen any of this, but it really didn't ease their minds. She even received a phone call from the superintendent advising her that 4 parents had contacted BOE members, wanting their children removed from the classroom. So Jean promised to investigate. Shortly after that, one of the fathers of the students came in and demanded a conference with her, told her that he wanted his daughter out of that woman's class, said that she was having trouble eating and sleeping and cried every morning, didn't want to come to school. So Jean set up a meeting for the next morning and assured him that she would be there also. Then she decided it was time to confront Mrs. Horton about all of this. She went down after school, informed her there was going to be a meeting the next day, told her about the phone calls, the letters, everything. And Mrs. Horton was a bit defensive, but agreed to the meeting. So the next day comes, and Mr. Stafford comes early. Jean takes him down to Mrs. Horton's classroom, and as they're waiting for her to gather her things, he becomes increasingly agitated. So Jean starts the meeting by stating why they are there and asks Mr. Stafford what he wanted to accomplish. And he said that he wanted his daughter out of Mrs. Horton's room. And when Jean asked for an explanation, he said that she upsets the children, screams at them all day, embarrasses them. And at this point, Mrs. Horton interrupted by shouting that he was a liar and that it was all lies. So Jean postponed the meeting, stood up, shook Mr. Stafford's hand, and assured him that the placement of his daughter would get her immediate attention. He left. When Jean turned back around, Mrs. Horton was still angry and her posture was defensive. So what do I know concerning this problem? I know that the principal is early in her career, that the teacher involved is a former teacher of the year and is displaying unusual behavior. We know there have been parent complaints, and we know that this is an escalation of issues from the previous year. What I need to know is, Jean said that she had gone into the classroom and hadn't seen any of these behaviors. Well, how long were those observations? Has Jean gathered any feedback from the students? Were there complaints last year? What are the current test scores and attendance rates? What support is available from the district? And not only for Mrs. Horton, instructionally, but do they have counselors available? Because whatever personal issues are obviously affecting her work, and possibly her health. Also, is there support available for the principal? Have there been any surveys, parents, staff, students? Has data been looked at? Are evaluations being done? My problem statement is probably different than most people's. I believe that the lack of support and no or ineffective actions by the principal have exacerbated a situation. Plan of action. Number 1, repair and build relationships. Mrs. Horton needs to apologize to the parents, open up those lines of communication. Jean needs to repair and build relationships with the staff and the students and the parents and open lines of communication. Support. Mrs. Horton needs support not only in the classroom, but she needs personal support. Jean needs possibly a mentor or colleague to help her move from a passive leadership approach into an actual leadership. In touch. Jean needs to get in touch with her school. She needs to be visible. She needs to have transparency. She needs to be looking at the data. Student achievement, attendance rates, parent views. She needs to be doing observations, not just quick pop-ins. She needs to be doing evaluations with the teachers, sending out surveys, again, to staff, parents, kids. She needs to address parent concerns. Have a parent meeting where she apologizes for not addressing their concerns earlier, open some lines of communication, and truly address their concerns. Resolution. There needs to be support for the teachers. Transparency and visibility. Students need to have a voice. She needs to build relationships, communication, and collaboration. Debrief of the problem. As I was reading this, I was thinking, why? Why had this been allowed to go on for so long? Why had the principal not stopped when she, at the last year, when she saw that Mrs. Horton was stressed and struggling, why did she not sit her down then and offer her support? I had feelings of frustration and empathy for the teacher. I was frustrated that she wasn't getting the support that she needed. I was valuing my experience because as an administrator, I have been through this just this last year, where I had to sit down with a teacher and voice my feelings of concern for her and help her seek out professional counseling. things that are unresolved are still open, what are the reactions going to be from the parents and the teacher? What is the district protocol in a situation like that? Don't know what the student achievement levels are right now. And based on some of those things, some of the next steps are still open. As an education leader at the building level, reflecting on Standard 2, there are several things that I think I personally would, the way that I would handle it and address it meets these standards. Number 1, promoting the academic success of each student. Need to have a school culture that influences student success. If the teachers are successful, the students will be successful. And you have to provide feedback using the data and the assessments and evaluation of the teachers in addition to the students. And promote trust. The personal well-being of every student. You need to measure the teacher's performance. Use high-quality research and different levels and methods of evaluation of the students, the teachers, having accountability systems. I would put together something even on the computer where teachers would get immediate feedback on observations in the classroom, and I would be in those classrooms every single day. Enhancing the instructional capacity. I would be, as a principal, if I were in Jean's shoes, I would be, first of all, in that classroom. I would be helping with the instruction and maybe having an aide come in when I couldn't be there, until Mrs. Horton got back to her usual effective self. I would provide an instructional leadership. I would, again, evaluating the teachers and holding them to a high level. That will make the students successful as well. Additionally, again, I would put some technology in place so that I would be able to analyze the data, to look at the data, to figure out what the next steps would be, where we are, and what we need to do. I really like this about success. Shape and strengthen your focus on success. Utilize all resources around you. Commit to excellence in all you do. And right in the middle, and probably the most important, create lasting relationships. Experience new things. Seek out assistance. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And sustain your passion for learning. If, as building administrators, if we can do this, we will definitely be successful. Thank you.